This is part 2 to where I've been. Where I've been in the past 10 months is going to be answered today. So my last podcast that I released last week let you all know that I have been absent, and it could explain a little bit about where I was and why I hadn't recorded a podcast in over a year. And that was in February, as far as when that podcast was recorded. And today is actually December 29th, 2025. Now, I know I'm not supposed to date my podcasts, but who says? Who says that's not what I'm supposed to do? But I'm going to go over 5 topics. I'm going to go over 5 topics in regards to updates to further explain where I've been since February. Now, what you heard last week was a recording that I recorded in February 2025, and I just released it on the 22nd of December, and that was 10 months. So there's a lot of time that went by that is unaccounted for that I am going to share with you today. So here are the things that I'm going to cover. And this is going to be all in one shot. Hopefully. You may hear some fuzzing in the background. That's because the heat is turning on, because the temperature dropped, and it is it's probably about like 20 degrees right now. But anywho, top thing that I'm going to cover: why the February podcast was never posted. And 2, a health update, where I am now, my current health status, and where I am in my current fitness journey, and what's changed since February. 3, the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, the continual highs and lows of being an entrepreneur, aka personal training. Also, personal loss. I suffered another personal loss in my family. I wrote about it in my blog, and it's about my Aunt Lisa. And I'm going to get more into that. And lastly, what's next? Where does this lead? It is the 29th of December, 2025, and New Year's is right around the corner. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Why the February podcast was never published is because if I don't have nothing nice to say, why should I say it? I have been feeling just very negative for a long time. My cousin had passed in 2024. That has been, documented, and I have shared my feelings about that. And ever since then, I just had a negative aura maybe around me. My mindset was negative. My vision for the future was that just as well too. And I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to share that. I know this is the Success Fitness Podcast, and I'm supposed to be this, pillar for inspiration and motivation. I just didn't feel like being that. I could not pick out anything positive that I wanted to share for 10 months. That's because that was a choice. I chose to be in that. And I chose to not talk my way through this podcast. I have family and friends that I've talked to, and we talk to still to this day about that situation. And I'm doing better. In that regards, but I didn't want to record this podcast and publish it if I'm just going to be talking like, oh, woe is me. This is what's been going on. And I feel negative. I feel bad. Blase, wompty. And I just didn't want that. I just didn't want that to be a staple. You know, I didn't want that to be a staple. I didn't want it to be a staple from a standpoint of that's all I would talk about, because that's all I felt at the time. I've learned to express myself with this podcast about how I'm feeling about my health and fitness journey. And I relay that back to you all, right? I relate it back to you listening. And it was just tough to stay on subject. It was very tough to stay on subject. You know, I have tons of articles. If you could see the notes in my phone right now that have articles saved in regards to, you know, health and fitness, you know, different things that were going on during the year. I'm always reading articles in regards to the niche or the field, right? A lot of interesting things, but I came across a lot of death. There were a lot of bodybuilders that passed away. You know, people who you visually see that are in shape, but you don't know what's going on internally, right? And I saw those, and that was interesting. I'm like, why am I gravitating towards that negativity so much, right? But I saved it. But I saved those articles. I still may read them off later. I'm not for sure. I have to see what is the purpose. And when I saw those things and came across those things, I just did not want to share them because I felt that I would be, you know, way too negative, right? So I never published the February podcast until last week. I'm glad I did because it was time. I looked up and I'm like, man, you haven't published a podcast in like over a year. October 2024 is the last time I had published a podcast. And even after that, from like November to December, I just didn't, I wasn't feeling it, right? And then I recorded something in February. I'm like, okay, it's time. And I never hit publish. I never published it. I never did anything to it because it was so personal. It was therapy. I didn't know if I really wanted to share that, but I published it. And shout out to, I can't remember his wife's name. Let me look right now. Remember, I said I'm doing this all in one take. So shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Doug and Darcy Freed. They left me heartfelt messages and shared with me the gratitude for transparency. Shout out to Michelle. Shout out to my client and dear friend, Michelle King. You can go to her YouTube channel, Soulful Wellness and Nutrition, here on YouTube. And she let me know how heartfelt that was. And shout out to Miss Robin Walker. And shout out to her. Subscribe to her YouTube channel just as well, Robin's Nest Radio. And, you know, she's been one of my guides through all of this, and just let me know to keep going, and how that resonated, you know, with her. And these people have been affected by my words, and I didn't necessarily bank off of that. I don't know what I banked off of. I just know that I needed to talk. I know I needed to talk into this microphone. And I've noticed after I do feel better. I do feel better. And hopefully you can too, just as well. But that is a little tidbit on why I did not publish that podcast that I recorded in February until, you know, last week. So 10 months have went by since I actually recorded that podcast. I actually recorded that podcast. So we got March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. That is a long time. That is 10 months of just unaccounted for data, put it like that. And my health and fitness journey, I'm kind of getting tired of that label, but I don't know what word to replace it with. But just know that anytime I say health and fitness journey, I kind of get cringe. But until I coin something else, then that'll be that. And I believe I may have expressed that before in a podcast and in previous years or previous time. But anyway, I'm not in the best of physical shape. I know that for sure. I look in the mirror every day. I'm not in denial about it. It just is what it is. To be better is always a goal, is always front in mind. But when you are in your emotions, and when I'm in my emotions, I could care less. I was just getting up and just doing my job for the day. I was making sure I was honoring my contracts with clients and being there for them. And you know what? Shout out to all of my clients. Shout out to all of my clients, right now, for being there for me. For being there for me during that time I need them more than I thought, because they gave me and they give me a sense of normalcy when my world was shattered. I had to find a way to center myself. And if I have a client that is scheduled at 7:30 in the morning, then I have to be up for them. And I have to be in the right frame of mind. So that helped me also in the grieving process. So shout out to Andy. Shout out to Tawanda. Shout out to Jeff. Shout out to Kat. Shout out to Robin, Valerie, Michelle, Bob, Renita, Rose. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate the time that you have dedicated, the time that you've invested. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I pray I haven't forgotten anybody. For some reason, I think I want to say I left out Robin. So shout out to Robin. And shout out to, thought I forgot about you, Samantha. It's a big shout out. I talk to my clients. Clients talk to me about what's going on in their lives. And I express what's going on in mine just a little bit. I never want to take over their sessions. But the sense of normalcy personal training has given me in regards to getting myself back on track. And so thank you. You all still inspire me. You all have been great, and life has been happening, and I understand life has been happening for you just as well. And you're still here. You're still here. You're working out. You're hitting your goals. You're still hitting your goals. Even though I may not be hitting mine, you are still hitting yours, and that is what's most important. And this has all taught me how to be a better leader, a better example. And in 2026, Lord willing, I will be better. I will be better, because the ups and downs of entrepreneurship is real. It's heavy. But my mantra of more weight, you only get stronger when you add more weight. So the heaviness of entrepreneurship is supposed to make me stronger, but I don't feel like working out. I don't feel like lifting weights. I don't feel like bench pressing. I don't feel like squatting. I don't feel like no additional weight. I don't feel like moving no additional weight. And I've had more days like that during these past 10 months where I did not feel like doing anything. But I had to snap out of it. I really had to snap out of it to really appreciate being able to be allowed to wake up, right? Because we don't do none of this on our own. I don't do any of this on my own, but just, being in grief, being in denial that this is reality, and some things as far as business wise slipped through my hands, and or I let go intentionally, purposely, or just not even caring. Just not even caring. And I thought I was doing good or okay or just maintaining, but in this modern day world and as an adult, that's not the best way to handle things, because things can get out of control. Things can get out of hand, and they did financially. And so, with that being said, I had to get a job. I actually clock in. I work 2 days a week now. And that whole situation, how it came to fruition, I had to swallow my pride. I had to realize what I was doing was not working enough, because I was not working enough, because I could care less about working enough. I really could. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. And when I have that mentality, and when I did have that mentality, I was putting so many of my loved ones that are around me, who support me and who have been supporting me, at risk. And it was affecting them. And I had to just snap out of it. I had to, just get some help. And actually, like, my job, it's cool. There's nothing like a reoccurring paycheck. For 7 years, or how long has that been? What, 8? Since like 2017, I've pretty much just been on my own with this entrepreneurship. Was that 9? Yeah, 9. I'm going on 9. That didn't clock in anywhere, technically. Trying to record this podcast and publish podcast and personal training and, merch stores and all these type of things of entrepreneurship that, put it like this, I could have, should have done a better job at managing it, right? And managing it, yes, it sounds vague, and it is vague, but what I mean by that is, whether it's outsourcing or hiring somebody to help. So you can take managing however you want it. But that's just my version of it. I could have did a better job. I could have did a better job of that. And that would have possibly, prevented me from getting a job. But that was never against a job. I was never against a job. If you follow me, since you follow me on social media, every now and then I'll post a meme or a joke as FTJ. And I need to do a podcast on the origins of what that means, of what that really means. It's not anti-job. You know what I'm saying? It's F that job. It's not necessarily anti per se, but we've all had that feeling where, hey, I don't feel like doing this, or this is crazy, or I got to go to work to deal with this type of person or these type of people, or whatever the case may be. But, entrepreneurship takes turns. And what I'm learning is you better take your time to do the right thing when you are given and granted time, or else it will be taken from you, right? Your time has to be allocated for what you're doing, every day. And that allocation of time, you need to have some dollars behind it. This is just the reality. This is just the reality of the situation. So I question a lot of going forward. That situation of getting a job and having to get a job was like, you know what? Hey man, this ain't working. And this hasn't been working the way how you want it to or envision. So wake up and smell the coffee, because you could lose everything. But I thank God for grace. I thank God for mercy. And I thank God for favor that I was able to get employed and get on somebody's payroll. In addition to still doing personal training, don't get me wrong. But when you have to deal in entrepreneurship of sometimes people have their payment, sometimes they don't, or sometimes people stay on or renew, sometimes they don't. Everybody's going through life, so I can't look at it to blame others. You know what I mean? And those are just facts. And some of the things that I wanted to work out just did not work out the way I wanted them to from my merch store. Let me go ahead and be transparent about that. So my merch store is started on teespring.com, and later they got bought out by spring.com. So I had just redesigned some artwork, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me go ahead and upload these, and this will be my new line of, merch that people can buy. Well, Teespring was not, they didn't, I purchased a sample order, right? And they never sent it out. And I finally heard something back from them in like this past November. So from August, I placed an order in August. Didn't hear anything back from them until November after multiple emails. And they refunded my money because I said, well, just give me my money back. And so I just been nervous if that has been happening to you. So if you've gone to my merch store and have yet to receive your purchase, what you've purchased, just let me know, because I'm trying to monitor of what's going on with this company. I've been with them for over 5 years. I've never had an issue, but until recently. And things change with people. People get bought out, it's just different things. So when you see those type of things happen, and those type of things do happen in entrepreneurship, your supplier, has changed, to put it like that. And whatever change means, for you, or however you defined it, this change I did not like. So will I encourage and still promote their website, my merch store? Of course I will, but I want to make sure they don't do to you what they did to me. And I'm still awaiting some of that more confirmative information that they're okay. In my podcast that I published in February, I mentioned about taking care of my aunt, because I knew that's what my mother, my grandmother, and my cousins, and my grandfather would want, for her to be looked after. On September 26, 2025, my Aunt Lisa passed away, which is my Aunt Lisa is the mother of my cousin Sean. And September 26, 2008 was the day that my mother passed. And so my aunt passed on the same day as my mother, her sister, 17 years apart. And the irony is that my Aunt Lisa, her birthday was the day before, on the 25th, September 25th. And so she just turned 70. And the next day she passed. And whatever, man. When she passed, that was my attitude. Just, man, whatever. It's like, what is life? What is this? It's like loss after loss after loss. And right when I thought I was kind of getting cool about, dealing with, my cousin's not here. Then she passed. Now, I was with my aunt at least 4 days out of the 7 days in a week. From about February till about the end of May. There have been some changes that were going on. And, we moved her in a better place. Her health was just taking a turn. And, we never know how much time somebody has and time that we have. About time that we have. And you have to cherish people a lot more. Cherish time. And if you have an argument with somebody or a disagreement or whatever, just talk it out. And that's one thing me and my aunt did. We had a disagreement about something and we talked it out. And we're all going through something emotional. And I love that we talked it out. I love that. I went to see her. She moved from her apartment. She went into what do you want to call that? A retirement home. She went into a retirement home, not assisted living, but a retirement home. And it was just different for her. I know it was. And I remember seeing her and going to visit, and she was surprised I had popped up, and I would always just pop up on her after she moved. And I took her down to eat lunch one day because I heard she didn't like the food. My aunt always wanted the best. And she lost a lot of weight. She just wasn't eating. And I'm laughing because it's like her attitude was like, I'll starve before I eat something nasty. She always wanted the best. And, I would cook for her, when she was in her apartment before she moved. And things were just different. But I just remember leaving her that day. She held my hand like very tight, like didn't want me to leave. When I was leaving, I spent about 2 hours with her that day. And I could have sworn I felt my grandmother in her touch. And about a week and a half later, my aunt passed. But I'm so glad that I spent so much time with her, got to learn who she was a little bit more. And know that she's a human being. She had 2 boys that passed on her. And what she was dealing with at that time, while we were all dealing with it as a family just as well too. That was tough, and it still is tough. We just had Thanksgiving, and I mentioned in my last podcast, I think I may have mentioned about Thanksgiving, but she was a big orchestrator in that big family event that I had. And, it felt different with her not being here this year. I'm still processing that. And you realize time is very finite. A lot of times, like, I would think that I have this immortality or invincibility or this infinite access to time, and it's just it's just not that, man. It's just not that. And you realize time is finite. You realize time is finite and it's limited. And so I'm looking at the 24 hours that I have in a day very differently now, because you got to be able to produce in this world. And, I wasn't producing anything, just grief and loss and grief. And, you got your own personal life, you got relationships, you got, trying to keep the family together the best way you know how. Not to say that I'm doing it by myself, no, but what you hold on dear to. There's these past couple of years have rocked my family, but the grace of God has kept us. I thank God I didn't lose my mind, and it makes me think about homeless people. Some people never recover from a loss. Their mother losing, they're losing their mother, their father, their parent, or a loved one, whatever it is, and they can spiral out. And it just gives me an additional perspective that is a possibility of, okay, where did it go wrong for somebody? Like, how did they end up there? And there are so many just different angles, but that is one of them that I can now empathize with if that has happened or does happen to somebody. When my mother passed, my aunt was in the hospital the same exact day my mother passed. So she never got to I may stand corrected on that. I'm not sure if she got to pay her last respects to her sister. I'm not for sure. And she's somebody that I talk to often after everything went down, smoke was kind of clearing. We would talk. Me and my aunt, we lived together several times since I was so close with Sean. We all lived under the same roof, two times in our lifetimes. So I was close with my aunt. She taught me a lot, and I'll have that blog post linked to in the description just as well, explaining further in detail, about that. But, rest in heaven, Aunt Lisa. And, yeah. So where does this lead next? This leads to, I'm leaving you. I've been going through so many losses and withdrawals and absences that I think it is time to leave you. Now, I'm not leaving my podcast. I want to rebrand it. And what I am leaving is my my attention to my female audience. And this is what I mean. A lot of times when I'm talking, I talk in general, and I'm trying to not please, but I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, if I use this phrase, appease to everybody, right? When you talk about health and fitness, it's like, oh, you want everybody to take this information. And some information is, can go towards men and women. But I want to start honing in and talking to the fellas. I just turned 44 on December 15th. And I realized I need to share what's going on with me and present questions and ask questions to ChatGPT or Google and find articles that I need answers to and read them off to you guys, literally, that, hey, fellas, this is what I'm going through. And if you are going through this, here is a solution that I read about. Let's both try it in real time to see if it works. Does this mean that I'll never read off an article that is dedicated solely and exclusively to women? No. But part of why things may not have worked out the way they needed to in regards to social media, YouTube, or whatever, is because I was speaking in general. I like to just create and post however I feel. But in this world, niching down is important. It is important. And who it is that I'm talking to is it's important to grow. And the funny thing is that majority of my clientele in real life are female. But I think that's very disingenuous for me to try to tell a woman, what to do or how to do it in this particular age range of women that I work with, on what's going on in their lives or what's going on in their bodies, what to look out for that is specifically for women, right? I can't tell a woman, okay, you're going through premenopause and you should be expecting this and expecting that. That is not my lane. When it comes to like fat loss and, different type of hormones that affect women, I do not have any expertise in that, or how weight gain from childbirth is just dealing with that in their body. I do not have any experience in that. And for me to try to look up articles or different things like that to read off to, I personally feel, this is me, nobody's ever said it, I feel it's disingenuous. And why do I not have that same energy for me, for the men, for the males that currently tune in? According to YouTube, my demographics of people who watch the videos, not so much the podcast, is mainly men. On Facebook, though, it's mainly females, but a lot of men. And I think I have dropped the ball over the years, giving more attention to the fellas, right? So I apologize for that. And moving forward, you will hear a different intro from the Success Fitness Podcast. You will. So when you hear it, I just hope nobody will, be offended. But some people may be. I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. But this is the reason why. This is the reason why I want to focus. I want to focus more for, towards my men. Pause. Towards the fellas, right? When I'm at the gym, I'm talking to mainly guys, and I'm working with, when I work with my male clients, there's a certain type of relatability that we all share and we all going through. I'm like, yeah, I'm going through that now. And some of my male clients are older than me. And now I have to look at life through their eyes of things to look forward to, Lord willing, given time, given that time. So it's like, I need to start taking better care of myself. Who's to say I'm going to see tomorrow the next year? We don't know. And that's kind of like where my mind has been at. And again, that's why I have been away from podcasting for a while, because that's just where my mind has been at. Am I going to make it this far? Am I not? Am I going to have to look forward to, all these extra aches and pains? Now I think I'm entering the age where, I don't know when it is, but you guys let me know. Of course, I can do a Google search or Chat GPT search, colonoscopies, checking for prostate cancer, all these type of things. It's really serious right now. 44 is something, 44, it's like, wow, and to have these memories of these people that I've lost, or these people that are, were in my life, is still alive, but they're no longer in my life. You think about childhood and certain memories, and it's like, man, we don't get to hit the rewind button, right? We don't get to hit the rewind button. And I want to do a better job at addressing us men. There's just a lot, to me personally, on social media, a lot of information that is geared towards women from men that I don't necessarily believe they have the best intentions when they're creating this content. It's almost like the need for them to dominate when there is no need for them. But I just want to do a better job. I want to be a voice to talk to the men, talk to the men. And I avoided that earlier on. I avoided it, and I have my reasons for that, because I wanted to not ostracize anybody or exclude anybody. But when you try to involve everybody, you're going to leave people out. You may not even be listened to from people, because you're just talking so in general, so nobody knows who in the world you are talking to. So that's my goal going into 2026, is to rebrand my podcast. And for the outro, I'm going to give you my new updated intro, and I'll just end it right there, because we're looking at about 43 minutes right now, and I cannot believe I have been talking for 43 minutes straight. Interesting. So getting right back into the swing of things, and I want to, and I need to be a lot more dedicated and focused in this, because one thing I did notice that one thing that I did notice, that my podcast, by it not being published and it not being out, and me not expressing and giving myself to your ears, I was surprised at how many things were connected to this podcast that I didn't think were kind of like additional arms to the services that I provide. So after looking over those things, I have to get back to work. I have to work harder. I have to work more. I have to get back to work. So this is my declaration, like everybody's doing for New Year's. It's just making a declaration to be better, to be more, to be, refined. And I notice in life is that you have to get rid of excess to grow. You have to get rid of things in order for you to grow to who it is that, God wants you to be. And speaking of that, I had to get myself really back acquainted with God. I had to get myself back acquainted with Jesus Christ, who was the head of my life. that I am not ashamed to say. I was in a really dark place. I didn't know I was in a dark place because I'm like, oh, I'm alive. It's whatever. But life is to be lived. Life is to be enjoyed, and enjoyed with love and showing love. And that is, it's like the ultimate commandment is to love one another. And a part of me loving you is to show up, because I'm not necessarily sure how you are affected by this, even in a positive or negative way. I know my intention is to show love and show up with love. And that is my goal. That is one of my many goals, to share what is going on, in this world. Now, I know, you come here for motivation and inspiration, and I try not to be, so down or talk down, but this is my life at this moment. And this is actually what's going on. Now, I will get back on subject about, certain things and certain health concerns, right? I'll be geared more towards that, and I'll apply it to what is going on in my life, how that's applicable. So hence, that's why I want to focus more towards the men and the guys, and just because if I'm talking to you, I'm expressing what I'm going through, and I don't ever want to disrespect women and to come on here and say, hey, this is what you need to do. And it's like, you haven't walked a mile in my shoes or a foot in my shoes. And it's like, you know what? You're right. So shout out to all my women listeners out there. And I'm still going to, put stuff out. But I just know, as far as for myself, some things needed to be changed. So, in some, this is me. This was part 2 on, where I've been and why I hadn't recorded a podcast in 10 months. So like I said, this is part 2, and, going forward, the Success Fitness Podcast. One thing I've noticed is that I took a year off as far as volume of number of episodes. There are a lot of professional podcasts that hadn't had as many episodes that I've had, and I had to look at like, man, how much were you working? Well, you have to just work more. You have to stay diligent, and I'm working on that, of finishing what I started. And 2026 will be the best year of my life, will be the best year of your life just as well. And we are all going to be better. Trials and tribulations will happen, but it's just for a season. And it's all for refinement, for you to be a better you. So shout out to you for taking time out to listen to the Success Podcast. That's how long I've gone without doing my podcast. The Success Fitness Podcast. So here's my new intro that I will leave you with. Welcome to the Success Fitness Podcast. I am your host, Christian Evans. This podcast is designed for men over 40 who want to elevate their lives in faith, fitness, and career.